Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes we find ourselves in relationships where we put in all the effort, show all the love, and invest deeply, yet there's something missing from the other side. It's crucial to recognize when someone simply isn't willing or able to reciprocate your efforts or value you in the way you deserve. If a man does not want you, remember that is not a reflection of your worth. Rather, it's a sign to turn your focus inward, invest in yourself, and open your heart to people who genuinely value and cherish you. When a man doesn't want you, it's hard to face. It can shake you down to the core. But here's what I need you to know: his rejection does not define you. His disinterest does not lessen your worth. We are all drawn to that validation from others, but it's crucial to recognize that the real validation has to come from within. So, what do you do when a man doesn't want you? First, you acknowledge it. You accept it for what it is. Don't dwell on the what-ifs or the maybes, because those are the words that keep us stuck. The moment you start believing, if only I were different, he would feel differently, is the moment you hand over your power. If a man can't see your light, it's not your job to make him open his eyes. It's your job to keep shining. And maybe right now you're thinking, but I gave him everything. I showed him the depths of my heart. Remember this: giving all of yourself to someone who won't give even a piece of themselves in return is like pouring water into a broken vessel. You can keep pouring, but it will never be full. When you spend time with someone who doesn't value you, you're actually taking time away from the people who would love and cherish you. Life is too short to sit around waiting for someone to see your value when you've already shown them the best parts of you. You deserve someone who is already captivated by your spirit and doesn't need to be convinced. It's hard to let go. We all know that feeling. But clinging to someone who doesn't want you only leaves you with one thing: a broken heart. We often hold on to people because they symbolize our hopes, our dreams, our future, and maybe even our worth. But when you put your sense of value into someone else's hands, you'll always be left wondering if you're enough. Letting go is reclaiming that power. It's not easy, and I'm not going to pretend it is. You might feel the emptiness, that ache. But the beauty of that emptiness is that it's space. Space for you to grow, space to fill with love for yourself, and space for the right person to come in and see you for who you truly are. You have to remember that real love is not complicated. It does not make you feel uncertain or unloved. Real love feels like home, like peace, like comfort. Take this as a moment to turn inward, to reflect on the love you have for yourself. If you're willing to give so much love to someone who doesn't appreciate it, imagine the power you hold when you start pouring that love back into yourself. When you stop looking outward for validation, you'll find that everything you need is already within you. You don't need someone to complete you, you're already whole. And here's the thing: when you finally walk away, you'll realize it wasn't just him you were walking away from. You're walking away from a mindset that says you have to prove your worth to be loved. You're walking away from self-doubt, from the endless questioning, from settling. You're saying, I deserve better. And there's power in those words. They're the first step in a journey to a new beginning. Let's remind ourselves of this truth: you can be everything to the wrong person and still not be enough, but that says nothing about you and everything about them. Sometimes, no matter how deeply we care, people come into our lives only for a season. They show us something about ourselves, about what we need, and then it's time for them to go. There's freedom in letting go. When you free yourself from people who cannot or will not love you, you're opening the door to people who can and will. And the most important person in that room, the one who has to love you the most, is you. So don't wait for someone to want you. Want yourself. It's easy to think that if someone doesn't want us, there must be something wrong with us. That's how we're conditioned. We internalize rejection as a sign of failure, as if we're somehow lacking. But here's the truth that's harder to see in the moment: the fact that someone doesn't want you is often more about them than it is about you. It reflects their desires, their preferences, their readiness for love, or even their own struggles. We are each on a unique journey, and sometimes that means people's paths won't align with ours. It doesn't mean you're on the wrong path, and it certainly doesn't mean you're not enough. If a man doesn't want you, the first thing you need to remember is that you have the right to feel. Feel the pain, feel the disappointment, feel the sadness. You're human. Heartbreak isn't something you brush off like dust on your shoulder. It's deep, and it's heavy. But here's the thing, emotions are like waves. They rise, they peak, and then they fall. It might feel like the pain will never subside, but it will. Give yourself the permission to grieve. Give yourself permission to feel all of it, because that's how you start to heal. Then give yourself permission to let go of the idea that your value is tied to how someone else feels about you. We spend so much time trying to be liked, to be chosen, to be someone's one, that we forget our most important relationship is with ourselves. You were not put on this earth to be loved by just one person or to fit neatly into someone else's story. You are here to live out your own beautiful narrative, a life filled with self-love, joy, and growth. And yes, part of that journey might involve other people, but they're not the final measure of your worth. When a man doesn't want you, consider it an invitation. An invitation to redirect your energy, to shift your focus back to you. Start asking yourself the hard questions. What do I want? What makes me happy? So often, we get caught up in what we think we need to do to be wanted that we lose sight of what actually lights us up, what makes us feel alive. Reclaiming your worth is about rediscovering these things. It's about realigning with yourself. Another thing, you have to stop making excuses for someone who can't see your value. We all want to believe the best about people, and that's a beautiful thing. But sometimes we paint someone in colors they never showed us, and we get caught in a cycle of hope that only leads to more heartache. We hope he'll change, we hope he'll come around, we hope he'll wake up one day and realize what he's missing. But here's the hard truth: if he wanted to, he would have. People show you who they are with their actions. If he's distant, it's because he wants distance. If he's inconsistent, it's because he's not committed. If he's indecisive, it's because he's not ready. Instead of wondering why he doesn't want you, ask yourself why you're willing to settle for someone who doesn't. And if the answer is that you're afraid of being alone, that's okay. It's natural. But remember, there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. You can be in a room full of people or in a relationship and still feel lonely if you're not truly loved. The real work, the challenging work, is learning to love your own company. To look in the mirror and say, I am enough, just as I am. And I know it sounds like a cliché, but there's wisdom in it. Because when you're at peace with yourself, you won't need someone else to validate your existence. You won't be shaken by someone's inability to see your value, because you will already know it. We have been taught to chase love, to prove our worth, to seek acceptance outside ourselves. But imagine the power, the freedom, if you turned all that energy inward, if you took all the love you were ready to give him and poured it into yourself. Imagine the strength you would have. Imagine the confidence, the clarity, the sense of peace. The moment you start loving yourself with the same intensity you hoped he would, is the moment you become truly unstoppable. Because a woman who loves herself, who is deeply rooted in her own worth, does not wait around to be wanted. She moves forward with her life, creating, growing, evolving. And the irony is, that's when the right people will be drawn to her. People who see her strength, who respect her boundaries, who cherish her heart. So, if a man doesn't want you, let him go. Release him from your heart, release the hope that he'll change, release the dreams you built around him. Free yourself. The world is vast, and there are so many beautiful connections waiting to happen. And you deserve a love that is as strong as the love you carry within yourself. And here's one last thing. Loving yourself and being alone doesn't mean you won't ever have moments of doubt or sadness. There might be days when you still wonder why it didn't work out, why you weren't chosen. That's normal. But on those days, remind yourself that his choice doesn't diminish your light. You don't need to be chosen by him or anyone else. You only need to choose yourself. When you choose yourself, you're setting the foundation for the life you deserve. You're opening yourself up to people who are ready to meet you where you are. And most importantly, you're making room for a kind of love that's healthy, that's reciprocal, that doesn't leave you wondering or questioning. Remember, there's nothing wrong with wanting love. Love is beautiful, but it becomes unhealthy when you start to believe that you need someone else to feel whole. You are already whole. When someone doesn't want you, it's easy to slip into self-doubt. You start analyzing every detail, wondering if you should have said something differently, acted differently, or been a different version of yourself. But here's the truth: if someone doesn't want you for exactly who you are, then they are not for you. Trying to fit someone's mold only leaves you drained and disconnected from yourself. And when you disconnect from yourself, you lose your own sense of joy, purpose, and peace. That's too high a price to pay for anyone. Think of it this way: love isn't about molding yourself to fit someone's expectations. Real love celebrates the parts of you that are unique, the things that make you irreplaceable. When someone genuinely loves you, they're not looking for you to change. They're looking to know you, support you, and grow with you. If you feel like you need to edit yourself to be wanted, that's not love, that's a transaction, an exchange where you're giving up parts of yourself in hopes of receiving approval. And that's not sustainable. The journey of self-love isn't about being immune to rejection, it's about knowing that rejection does not diminish your value. When you fully accept this, you'll find that you no longer take it personally when someone doesn't reciprocate your feelings. Their decision doesn't define you. It reflects their own journey, their own capacity, and their own needs, none of which are a measure of your worth. Imagine how powerful it would be to stop taking rejection as a reflection of who you are and start seeing it as redirection. If a door closes, it's because that path wasn't meant for you. There's something better, something more aligned with who you are becoming. Trusting this process is hard, especially when we live in a world that constantly tells us to pursue validation from others. But remember, the most fulfilling validation will always come from within. When you love yourself enough, you'll find that you don't chase people. You don't need to. People who are meant to be in your life will be drawn to your authentic energy. They will appreciate you without you needing to convince them of your value. This doesn't mean you won't feel the sting of rejection, but it means you won't let it shake your foundation. You'll understand that not everyone is meant to walk beside you on your journey, and that's okay. Your journey is uniquely yours, and it's taking you to beautiful places you can't even imagine yet. There's a reason why self-love is often described as a journey. It's because it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, reflection, patience, and forgiveness, especially forgiveness of yourself. Forgive yourself for any moments when you allowed someone else's opinion of you to overshadow your own self-worth. Forgive yourself for the times you tried to change for someone, for when you held on too long, for when you doubted your worth. Forgiveness isn't about erasing the past, it's about freeing yourself from it. Think of your life as a canvas. Every experience, every heartbreak, every triumph, and every rejection is a brushstroke that adds depth and color to the picture. Sometimes the colors are dark, sometimes they're bright, but together they create something beautiful, something uniquely yours. When someone doesn't want you, it's just one brushstroke. It doesn't define the whole picture, it's simply part of your story. And just like any artist, you get to step back, look at the whole canvas and decide what you want to add next. So what's next for you? Imagine pouring the love you once directed toward him back into yourself. Imagine the freedom of focusing on your passions, your dreams, your growth. That's the life you deserve, a life where you are at the center, where you are not chasing love but attracting it by being the truest version of yourself. When you live from that place, you'll find that the people who enter your life add to it rather than taking from it. They respect your boundaries, support your dreams, and value you just as you are. Every time you choose yourself, You are telling the world, I am enough. You're saying, I deserve to be loved without having to prove my worth, and let me tell you, there's a unique power in that. The world responds to the energy you put out, and when you radiate self-love, you'll attract people who recognize and honor it. Letting go is one of the hardest things to do, especially when you've invested so much of yourself. But sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to walk away. It's an act of courage, of strength, and of self-respect. Walking away doesn't mean you're giving up on love. It means you're making space for the love you truly deserve. You are choosing to trust that there is someone out there who will see your light and want to stand beside you in it, not extinguish it. And until that person comes along, cherish this time with yourself. Get to know who you are outside of anyone else's gaze. Explore your interests, your passions, your quirks. Embrace the parts of you that you may have hidden before. This is your chance to fall in love with yourself in ways you might not have been able to if you were constantly focused on being what someone else wanted. If you ever doubt whether you'll find love again, remember that love comes in many forms. Love from friends, love from family, love from passions, love from dreams. These are all parts of a life filled with connection and joy. Romantic love is beautiful, but it's just one kind of love. There's a whole world of love waiting for you when you open yourself to it. In the end, being wanted by someone else can feel wonderful, but it is never the most important thing. The most important thing is how you feel about yourself. Because at the end of the day, the only person who will be with you for your entire life is you. And that relationship is worth nurturing, worth investing in, worth cherishing. So, if he doesn't want you, let him go. Love yourself enough to walk away. Embrace the power of your own presence, the beauty of your own company, and the strength that comes from knowing your worth. In doing so, you are not only choosing self-respect, but you are opening the door to a life where love is a natural extension of who you are, not something you have to chase. And remember, you are complete, whole, and enough just as you are.